Welcome back to Inhibition. Today's topic, Kyle Rittenhouse. What are the myths about the shooting, from guns to state lines to his intent? It's time we talk about it. Alright, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me. I have been away for a few weeks due to some technical difficulties. I was unable to post any new videos, but that has been resolved now and I am back on schedule. So we will have a new video coming out every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, with Thursday being our videos exposing propaganda in the media. So I'm excited about that. Glad to be back. Hope you join me. Let's jump in to today's topic, Kyle Rittenhouse. Now, I've done a couple of videos in the past about Kyle Rittenhouse. I'm gonna have a few more coming out as we lead into November and his trial beginning. This is a very, very important case, and some people might ask, why are you doing so many videos on Kyle? And the answer to that is because this is an extremely important case. This is about the fundamental human right to self-defense. This is about the Second Amendment. It is about a right that we have as American citizens to defend ourselves against attackers. If Kyle is innocent because he acted in self-defense and he is found guilty, then it is extremely dangerous for us as a country because it is eroding our self-defense rights. And that's why this case is such a monumental, important case, and why I'm spending a lot of videos talking about this topic. That being said, the way we're going to handle this, I'm going to do a few different videos about myths, and what I'm actually going to do is show you video of someone else talking about the situation and me exposing the myths and the misinformation in the video. So that's how we're going to do this. So let's just jump right into it.
Last week, Kyle Rittenhouse, the Illinois teenager who traveled from Illinois to Wisconsin with his AR-15.
Now we're going to stop right there, right from the beginning, just a few seconds into this video. This is from a online show on YouTube called Ring of Fire, and he states right off the bat that Kyle crossed state lines with an AR-15. That is myth number one that we're going to look at in this video. Kyle did not cross state lines with an AR-15. The Lake County State's Attorney Office says it will not file additional charges against Kyle Rittenhouse in connection to the gun that he used to fatally shoot two people during the Kenosha protests. Antioch police actually determined that his rifle was purchased, stored, and used in Wisconsin, not in violation of Illinois law, and the state's attorney office said. They also said there's no evidence the gun was ever possessed by Rittenhouse in Illinois. So the gun was never possessed by Kyle in Illinois. The gun was purchased, it was stored, and it was used in Wisconsin. Kyle got the gun in Kenosha. As a matter of fact, the rifle was actually supposed to only be used while hunting up north at Dominic Black's family's property. That's his friend who actually purchased the gun. But in the meantime, it was stored at Black's stepfather's house in Kenosha. The stepfather of Dominic Black actually told police he had removed the guns from a locked safe in his garage to inside his home after the violence that followed the police shooting of Jacob Blake. So it was in a safe originally in Kenosha, and then Dominic Black's stepfather took it out of the safe and moved it into the garage, which was in the garage, and moved it into the house after the unrest and the Jacob Blake shooting and all the protests began to happen. Obviously to keep the gun safe. Now, that being said, the gun was already in Kenosha. He did not cross state lines with an AR-15. That is incorrect. And I've got the sources. You'll see the sources listed at the bottom of some of these screens. For this one, it was Chicago Sun-Times and the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. There's also multiple other sources that show this same information, including NPR and many other things. You can go look those up. But he did not cross state lines with an AR-15. So right off the bat, that is misinformation. Now, we've known this since the end of last year, since 2020. We're now moving into August. We are in August of 2021, and people still believe this myth. It is a very common myth online. People still believe it, but it is absolutely false. He did not cross state lines with an AR-15.
He murdered two Black Lives Matter's protesters.
Now, he says he murdered two Black Lives Matter protesters. There's really two claims within this sentence that are important. One, he says that he murdered people. Now, that's what he's been charged with. Now, he's actually been charged with first-degree reckless homicide and first-degree intentional homicide for the 2 people that died. One of them being intentional, one of them being reckless, according to the district attorney. However, that is what he's been charged with. He has not been convicted of that. Now, we'll talk about the murdered aspect of this in just a moment. He actually says something later in this video that will address that a little bit more. But the second thing is, he said he murdered 2 Black Lives Matter protesters. So I want to look at the Black Lives Matter protesters part of this for just a moment. And I want to examine, did he murder or did he kill 2 Black Lives Matter protesters? Well, let's start with Joseph Rosenbaum. Joseph Rosenbaum was the first person Kyle shot. Now, Joseph Rosenbaum was a depressed, homeless man. He was alone. He didn't belong to either side. He actually wasn't there as a Black Lives Matter protester or as a part of the group Kyle was with. He didn't really belong to either side. He was just kind of there. He spent most of his adult life in and out of in prison for sexual conduct with children when he was 18 and struggled with bipolar disorder. Now, before you say, oh, well, he was 18 and maybe he had like a 17-year-old girlfriend and you know, the family pressed charges, but it was only really 17, 18 years old. No. He raped 5 little boys around the ages of 9 to 11, I believe. That's what he was in prison for. So this was not some just 18-year-old with a 17-year-old girlfriend or something that happened. This was actual rape of children. He spent time in prison for that, struggled with bipolar disorder. That day, on August 25th, the day that the shooting in Kenosha happened, Rosenbaum was discharged from a Milwaukee hospital following his second suicide attempt in as many months and dumped on the streets in Kenosha. Now, Rosenbaum, he was actually in a mental institution or a Milwaukee hospital due to a suicide attempt and was released that very same day. So he had gotten released from a mental hospital due to a suicide attempt and then ends up that night in Kenosha during the protest. Hours after he was released from the hospital, Rosenbaum stopped by a pharmacy in Kenosha to pick up medication for his bipolar disorder, only to discover it closed early because of the unrest. Just one of the many other issues that people didn't think about with the riots that were happening. When riots break out, businesses are being destroyed. It doesn't just affect the business, it affects people. He needed medication and could not get it because the pharmacy had closed early because of rioting. That's another conversation for another video. But after he left the area where the pharmacy was, he visited his fiance. She was living in a cheap motel room. They had actually been homeless for quite a while, lived in a tent for a while outside of, you know, gas stations and different places that they lived in tents. They ended up getting a cheap hotel room, and that's where his fiance was living at the moment. But she told him he couldn't stay that night in the hotel. She had pressed charges against him a month earlier after a fight in which he knocked her down and bloodied her mouth. He didn't just knock her down, he body slammed her when you actually look at the details of that case. And again, showing he's a violent person. But he knocked her down, bloodied her mouth, and she had pressed charges against him. There was a no contact order, and if he violated that order, she warned he could be sent back to jail. And so he was homeless, had nowhere to go, couldn't go to the hotel with his fiance, just completely didn't know what else to do, and just kind of traveling around. Again, you can see from this context, he was not someone who was there looking as to be a Black Lives Matter protester, who was an activist, just a homeless, mentally ill man who had nowhere else to go. Specifically, 2 hours before he was killed, Rosenbaum left his fiance's motel room, called a bus for downtown, where a second night of protests had erupted. Now, his fiance said he wasn't there as a rioter or a looter. Why was he there? I have no answer. I ask myself that question every day. She had no idea why he was there. She's saying he wasn't a rioter or a looter, but she also had no idea why he was there, including the fact that clearly he wasn't there to be a Black Lives Matter protester. He was just a homeless man who had nowhere to go. There was something to do there. Probably didn't know where to go sleep. There's something going on downtown. He ended up there, not protesting for Black Lives Matter. As a matter of fact, I won't go too much into detail in this right now, but he is actually on video that night getting into a conflict with someone and using the N-word. This guy was not some Black Lives Matter activist. He wasn't a protester. He's just a mentally ill homeless man who happened to be there. She said he wasn't a rioter or a looter. He was a violent person by nature. We see that through his whole history, even recent history with what was happening with his fiance. So we know he was a violent person, and of course, violent people in the context of a riot they're going to get into trouble. Rosenbaum was there rioting. This is a picture of him with a fire that was started at a dumpster. He was trying to push the dumpster. If you actually watch the video, he's right there by a gas station. It appears he's trying to push the dumpster either towards the gas station or which is dangerous. They could blow up the gas station. There's gas there. Obviously, that's a dangerous thing. But he's obviously doing something with fire in a context where things have been burning down. He was rioting. He absolutely was a rioter. Not a BLM protester, but a rioter. And you can see that here. He's pushing that. Now you can see in the bottom of this picture, it says Image Theory Photography. They have a Facebook page. If you go to their Facebook page, it appears this picture has been taken down since it was originally posted. I'm assuming because of the situation with the shooting. But if you go prior to August when this riot took place, there were pictures from different protests. This particular photography company had gone to many of the protests and got images, including the one in Kenosha that night. It looks like they've deleted all the Kenosha pictures. And since the August protests, they have not posted any other pictures of protests. So it looks like this picture was originally from them and then taken down. But here it is. You can see him pushing that dumpster. It is on video. You can see here from this screen capture from a video. That's a Rosenbaum over there with the box around him there on the right. This is right after that same exact dumpster. You can see the A right there on both pictures of that dumpster. This person with a fire extinguisher came and put out that fire. This actually leads to a conflict with Rosenbaum. He's angry that the fire was put out, and you can see that all on video. He absolutely was rioting. This is him carrying a chain. This is actually moments before he walks up the street and gets into the conflict with Kyle Rittenhouse. You can see he has a chain in his hand. It's on video. You can go look at the video and see that he was carrying a chain. Now, you don't see the chain directly when you are watching the video of the shooting, so I don't know if he got rid of the chain before the shooting, but moments before the shooting, you can see he has his shirt over his head. His shirt is now off. He has a shirt over his head, and not just covering his mouth and face, and it clearly wasn't because of COVID, because he was out there all night long prior to this without his mouth and face being covered. This is clearly him prepping to do something. He had plans for something, whether it was plans to attack Kyle or plans to attack someone else or plans to break something or rob something. He clearly had made plans to do something that he wanted to hide his face for, and he's walking down the street carrying this chain. So Rosenbaum, people say he was unarmed. He technically wasn't. He did have the chain. Now, at the time he attacked Kyle again, he may not have had it, but he was not unarmed prior to that. So you can see here Rosenbaum clearly not just some innocent BLM protester, but rather a rioter who wasn't there for Black Lives Matter at all. So no, Kyle didn't murder Black Lives Matter protesters. The other person that died that Kyle shot was Huber. And on the night he was killed, Huber sat on the front porch of his childhood home with his girlfriend of 5 months, Hannah Giddings. They smoked cigarettes, charged their phones, and talked about the need to bear witness to the night's protest. That became the mission, documenting the protests for posterity. They sketched out a plan on the porch of the crumbling pink-chipped house that had been the source of many problems in Huber's life. This is again from the Washington Post, the same source for all the information about Rosenbaum. Now, this interview that they did, that Hannah Giddings did with Washington Post and gave this information to, she clearly lays out that Huber he wasn't a Black Lives Matter protester necessarily. He, not that he was necessarily against Black Lives Matter either. He just was primarily going to the protest for documentation purposes, as almost like a journalist, not as an actual protester. And he had only been to 2 protests. This one that he was shot at, and then the other one was the night before. And those are the only 2 protests he ever been to for BLM. And the only reason he went, again, was to document and record what was happening. Now, I think what led him to want to do that is he knew Jacob Blake. He didn't know him as if they weren't close friends, but this article does say they used to smoke weed together, and therefore he knew who he was, and I had some mutual friends with him, and that kind of sparked him to be interested, which caused him to want to go and record what was happening at these protests. So he wasn't there actually as a protester, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he didn't support BLM, but he wasn't there primarily as a protester, but more as a journalist. As a matter of fact, Huber's friends said he didn't talk much about politics or activism, but they weren't surprised he took to the streets. I wouldn't say he was political, said one close friend, but I think he definitely hated racists. So Huber obviously didn't like racists, and you can see here he wasn't really an activist, wasn't really a protester. He was more there clearly for documentation purposes. Now, does that mean that because they weren't BLM protesters specifically that Kyle had a right to shoot them? No. Has nothing to do with why Kyle shot them. I'm just addressing the claims that have been made in this video. Now, was Kyle justified in the shootings? Yes, in self-defense. We'll talk about that more specifically in detail. But just because he shot him in self-defense, it had nothing to do with them being BLM protesters or not being BLM protesters. That being said, let's go to the next clip.
Last Friday, he was released from jail on a $2 million bond. He got the money from all of these right-wingers across the country who now view Kyle Rittenhouse as a hero.
So he says that they are right-wingers who posted Kyle's bail and donated to Kyle, and that they all view him as a hero. These are nothing more than assumptions. Now, you'll notice this with this gentleman. He makes a lot of assumptions as we continue throughout this video, and you're going to notice that he does so for no other reason than to attack his political opponents. But he's trying to make assumptions saying that all the people that support Kyle and that donated Kyle are right-wingers who consider him a hero. That's just assumption. He has no evidence that all the people that donated to Kyle are right-wingers or that all the people who donated to Kyle think Kyle's a hero. That is merely assumptions based on his political beliefs. But is it really true? Can we say that everybody who donated to Kyle are right-wingers or everybody who supported Kyle are right-wingers? Do we have any evidence of people who are not right-wingers supporting Kyle? Well, yes, we do. This man on this picture is a man that goes online by Destiny. He is a streamer on Twitch and on YouTube, and he's a political commentator, but he also talks about other topics. YouTuber, talks about religion some, different things like that. You can find him online. Destiny has described himself as a very big social democrat, a hardcore capitalist. Notice he didn't say socialist, social democrat, and a hardcore capitalist. I do have a video that breaks down the difference between socialism and social democrat. That is actually explained in my video on socialism. I'll link that in the description below. A classical liberal, a rural utilitarian, and an agnostic atheist. This guy basically is not right-wing. You can see exactly from he's a lefty, he's on the left, he's a Democrat, he is not right-wing at all. In 2020, Destiny supported the general election campaign of Joe Biden. Following Biden's victory, Destiny led a canvassing operation with his viewers in support of Democrat candidates Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock in the 2020-2021 Georgia Senate runoffs. So again, supporting left-wing Democrat politicians. He is not right-wing. That being said, Destiny has publicly stated that he supports Kyle and believes he acted in self-defense. This is a quote from Destiny. He said, "If we're only going to be going by the observable facts in the video, it seems abundantly and inarguably clear that the shooter was acting in self-defense at all stages." He clearly, and he has debated this. He's had debates with other people who disagree with him, showing, you can go to his YouTube channel and and find all these debates. where he explains he believes Kyle acted in self-defense. On Reddit, in response to someone saying Destiny defended Kyle, he wrote what he was responding to says he defended the Kenosha shooter, and Destiny wrote, I defend people's right to self-defense, which this obviously was. Yes. And so, again, clearly on the left, not a right-winger, but supporting Kyle. We can see here there's a Rational Disconnect. This is on Rational Disconnect's Twitter page. Rational Disconnect is on the left, is a absolute leftist. Now, Rational Disconnect believes Kyle acted in self-defense as well. He wrote, Rittenhouse is a stupid, probably bigoted person who shouldn't have been there or had a gun, but he was justified in defending himself when someone tried to take his gun. I also think people were justified in trying to stop him. It was awful and tragic. To explain what he's saying, he actually thinks that Huber and Gage and all of them were justified in attacking Kyle. From their perspective, they viewed Kyle as a shooter that they needed to stop. So he thinks they were justified, but he also thinks Kyle was justified in his acting in self-defense because from his perspective, he was just being attacked out of nowhere. And so he thinks both of them were justified, which is kind of a weird take to have with the Kyle Rittenhouse situation. But he does support Kyle and believes Kyle is not guilty of murder. He thinks Kyle acted in self-defense. Here's someone I don't know anymore. It's legit now. How do you know this person's responding to someone who said he went there to shoot people? He said, how do you know why he came there? I agree that he shouldn't have been there in the first place, but the shooting itself was in self-defense. He was being chased and attacked. He attempted to flee before he shot. You can actually look at this person. You go right now to their Twitter page. You will see they are absolutely a leftist. They follow Rational Disconnect, which is actually what they were responding to on this. And they retweet and support Democrats. So this is someone on the left. What about this? I'm a Democrat. It didn't take long for me to find that Kyle Rittenhouse was defending himself from constant attacks last night. Apparently, he gunned down multiple felons that should not have had weapons. At Ion Storm, a Democrat who supports Kyle defending himself. Here's someone else. I think I'm an Eric Zorn Democrat, a fairly liberal trib columnist, because this is exactly what I believe about Rittenhouse. He's an idiot, and it should be illegal to open carry, but the actual shots were self-defense. So he supports Kyle and believes Kyle acted in self-defense, even though he doesn't like the fact that open carry was legal and thinks that Kyle shouldn't have been there. Again, someone who's supporting Kyle in his right to self-defense and doesn't believe he's a murderer. What about this one? This is from an actual Breeden Law, an actual law attorney. And he says, I'm an attorney, and not that it matters, a Democrat. Having reviewed several videos of the event, I don't see any way Rittenhouse could be convicted. He was fired at first, I think it's supposed to be pursued rather than pursed, but pursued and attacked by a mob, and even fired a warning shot into the air, self-defense. So here you go, again, a Democrat who is an attorney looking at the facts and saying Kyle can't be convicted, that he supports Kyle's right to self-defense. Here's John Ackerby. All these people, again, are Democrats. It says Rittenhouse should be run through the prosecution process just to keep the system honest, but I'm not sure he should be found guilty. People were trying to overpower him to possibly use his own gun against him, so he may have acted in self-defense. Yes, I'm a Democrat. Again, someone on the left, not on the right. Then you've got this person. I voted straight Democrat. I'm a big fan of yours and usually agree with you. But when I looked at the videos of the Rittenhouse incident, it looked like self-defense to me. Murder charge is baloney. Maybe I'm wrong, but watch this. And they post an article or a video. It's actually a video from Colion Noir, who is a pro-gun advocate, that breaks down the facts showing that it was clear self-defense. Colion's also a lawyer. So again, these are Democrats and people on the left supporting Kyle. So no, not only right-wing people support Kyle, that's nothing but an assumption. And if we have these people publicly coming out who are on the left who support Kyle with their, publicly, it's very likely that there are people on the left who donated to Kyle also. So we cannot say that all the people who donated to Kyle that paid his bail were all people on the right. We also can't say that everyone that supports him thinks he's a hero. All these people, many of these people called him an idiot. They called him dumb, that he shouldn't have been there, that he was wrong for being there. They don't think he's a hero, but they support his right to self-defense. I don't think he's a hero. And I'm a very strong supporter of Kyle. I don't think he's a hero. I think he is a victim, however, who defended himself against his attackers. He was a victim. He got attacked, and he defended himself. And I support his right to self-defense wholeheartedly. But I don't think he's a hero. Are there people who do think he's a hero? Yes. Does that mean that everybody who supports him thinks he's a hero? No. These are nothing but assumptions.
And I understand he still has to go in front of a jury of his peers. They have to either determine him guilty or innocent. We're not saying guilty or innocent at this point.
Now, he says we're not saying guilty or innocent at this point. He's lying to you. He's going to absolutely claim that he's guilty, and we'll look at that as we go. He's trying to say, yeah, I know there's due process, and he's innocent until proven guilty, and he deserves a right to go before the jury of his peers, and we're not going to say he's guilty or innocent at this point. We're trying to be non-biased. This is nothing but propaganda. This is him selling propaganda, trying to make it sound like he's unbiased, trying to make it sound like he's in the middle and he's being rational, but he's absolutely not. He's absolutely going to argue that Kyle is guilty and not innocent. That is actually, by the end of this, that is going to be exactly the point he makes, and we're gonna see that as we go. Don't fall for propaganda. There will be people who try to act like they are saying, I'm not saying he's guilty. We don't know. But we shouldn't support him. But, I'm not saying he's necessarily guilty. No, don't fall for that. It's propaganda. They're trying to say he's guilty. You'll see this in just a moment as we go.
But there is no denying that he did murder these two individuals. The only thing that needs to be seen is whether or not this was self-defense, as Republicans claim it was.
Now, when I first heard this line, I literally had to listen again. I had to make sure he said what I thought he said. And he did. He said, there's no question that first of all, he just said we're not going to say he's guilty. Okay. Then he says, there's no question that he murdered these people. Now, wait. You just said we're not going to assume we're not going to say he's guilty. Now you're saying there's no question he murdered people. But then he follows that up with, the only question is, was it self-defense or not? He is trying to argue that even if it's self-defense, it's still murder. And that's incorrect. Now, if it's self-defense, is it still a fact that Kyle killed people? Yes, that's a fact. It would be a justified killing, but it would still be the fact that Kyle killed someone. That's not murder. Murder is a specific word. And I hope that this guy is just ignorant, but I don't think so. I think he is using the word murder specifically here as propaganda. It's a mind trick. He absolutely murdered somebody. There's no question on that. So murder carries a specific meaning, and we're going to look at that meaning. This is from the law definition. This is the actual legal definition of murder. A noun, the killing of a human being by a sane person with intent, malice aforethought, prior intention to kill the particular victim or anyone who gets in the way, and with no legal excuse or authority. In those clear circumstances, this is first-degree murder. Now, Kyle actually has been charged with first-degree intentional homicide. First-degree intentional homicide, there is no actual murder charge or murder in context to Wisconsin state law. Intentional homicide is murder. That's how they label murder in Wisconsin. And Kyle has been charged with that for two of it. Well, one of them was intentional homicide, and then one of them was attempted intentional homicide. First degree. By statute, many states consider a killing in which there's torture, movement of the person before the killing, like kidnapping, or the death of a police officer or prison guard, or it was as an incident to another crime, as during a holdup or rape, to be first-degree murder, with or without premeditation, and with malice presumed. Now, that's first degree. Second-degree murder is such a killing without premeditation as in the heat of passion or in a sudden quarrel or fight. Malice in second-degree murder may be implied from a death due to the reckless lack of concern for the life of others, such as firing a gun into a crowd or bashing someone with any deadly weapon. Again, this comes from dictionary.law.com. Now, here's the thing. Kyle hasn't been charged with second degree, but even if he had, self-defense doesn't fall into that category. So let's look at it. Self-defense, there is no intent. If it's self-defense, unless you had intent to, true self-defense is just a response. It's not intentional. It's a response to being attacked. And all you're trying to do is stop the threat, and that's not intent to, I want to kill this person. It's just trying to stop the threat. That's self-defense. There's no malice involved in self-defense. You're just responding to a threat. There's no malice involved, which is required for murder, at least in the first degree. And there's no forethought. Again, it's just a response to being attacked. There is a legal excuse or legal authority to act in self-defense. It's a legal right. Murder, again, there's no legal excuse for it. So legal excuse or authority there is for self-defense. And then even with second degree, it says there's a reckless lack of concern. There's no reckless lack of concern in self-defense. You're not being reckless. You're stopping a threat. There's no reckless lack of concern. So self-defense is not murder. So you cannot say that there's no question that he murdered someone. All that's waiting to be seen is whether it was self-defense or not. It's either self-defense or it's murder. It can't be both at the same time. Now, if he had said there's no question he killed someone, that's a different scenario. That's a different thing. But murder and killing are not synonymous. You can kill someone and it not be murder. Okay, so again, this guy, I believe, did that intentionally to say there's no question that he murdered someone, just putting that out there. But it could be just straight up ignorance, but I doubt. Let's keep watching.
So let's look at the facts. Kyle Rittenhouse was not allowed legally to have the weapon that he had.
Now, he says he was not allowed legally to have that weapon. And what he's alluding to is the fact that Kyle was 17 and a half. He was actually a few months from turning 18, but because he wasn't 18, he wasn't legally allowed to have that rifle, to be in possession of. That's incorrect. So let's look at this myth, and again, let's address it. So this is the law about possession of a dangerous weapon by a person under 18 years of age in Wisconsin. It is statute 948.60. And in this law, this is what he's actually been charged with his misdemeanor possession charge, which there's actually been a motion filed to see about getting this dismissed. But you can see here that this is broken into 3 sections. Section 1 defines what a dangerous weapon is. A loaded rifle specifically, does fall under the definition of a dangerous weapon. Section 2 describes the violations. So any person under 18 years of age who possesses or goes armed with a dangerous weapon is guilty of a Class A misdemeanor. Section 2B and C are in relation to a person giving a gun to someone under 18. And then Section 2D, a person under 17 years of age who's violated this subsection is subject to the provisions of 938 unless jurisdiction is waived. Again, that's actually talking about juvenile court. So really the main violation is Section 2A for Kyle. Section 3, however, is exceptions to that. So Section 1 defines it. Section 2 explains what the violation is. Section 3 says, but wait, there's exceptions. 3A is about using the gun during target practice under the supervision of an adult or in course of instruction. Kyle wasn't doing that, so 3A doesn't apply to Kyle. 3B is actually about a person who's a member of the armed forces. Kyle wasn't, so that doesn't apply to him. Section 3C actually does apply to Kyle, and we're going to look at that. Section 3C more specifically says this section applies only to a person under 18 years of age who possesses or is armed with a rifle or a shotgun. Kyle had a rifle. If the person is in violation of 941.28 or is not in compliance with 29.304 and 29.593. This section applies only to an adult who transfers a firearm to a person under 18 years of age if the person is not in compliance with those as well. So again, he's saying that if a person is under 18 years of age, this exception says if a person's under 18 years of age and they have a rifle or a shotgun, they're only guilty if they're in violation of 941.28 or not in compliance with 29.304 and 29.593. 941.28 is possession of a short-barreled shotgun or rifle. Kyle was not in possession of a short-barreled shotgun or rifle. His rifle was a standard AR-15 that has the correct length, so he was not in violation of 941.28. 29.304 is restrictions on hunting and the use of firearms by persons under 16 years of age. Kyle wasn't under 16, so he was not out of compliance with 29.304. And 29.593 is a requirement for certificate of accomplishment to obtain hunting approval. This is saying that if you're going to go hunting, you have to obtain a certificate of accomplishment to get your hunting license. Kyle wasn't going hunting, so that doesn't apply to him. So he's not out of compliance with that one as either. Now, if you want a more detailed explanation of these, I break it down in my Kyle Rittenhouse video that I'll have linked in the card above as well as in the description below, where I break down all of the evidence for all of Kyle's charges. I break down showing all the evidence it was self-defense. But I have a whole section in there breaking these down a little bit more detail, even looking at the specific gun Kyle had. So if you want to watch that video, click that in the link below and check it out. That being said, he qualifies for this exception. Therefore, he's actually not guilty of being underage with a rifle. He was absolutely in compliance and able to have that rifle. Like I said, his lawyer has actually already filed a motion to dismiss a charge that Rittenhouse couldn't possess a gun because he was too young under Wisconsin law, arguing the statutes prohibit minors from possessing short-barreled shotguns and rifles, and Rittenhouse's assault-style rifle doesn't meet that definition. I don't know what assault-style rifle means. This is from a news article, specifically from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, who used that phrase. That's not the phrase that was used in the motion. And it's not just about the fact that it wasn't a short-barreled shotgun. The motion also breaks down that he's not out of compliance with those other two statutes. So this again was filed in July, and Kenosha County Circuit Judge Bruce Schroeder has scheduled a hearing on the motions for September 17th. So that will be heard, and in September, Judge Schroeder will issue a ruling. And this potential charge, there's potential this charge could be thrown out for Kyle. So was he there with a rifle he was not legally allowed to possess? No, he was not. That's a myth.
Thanks so much for watching. For more videos, click subscribe and hit that notification bell. And if you enjoyed the video, click that like button. See you next time.